Hello and welcome to this second tutorial video on how to make a ragdoll body. This tutorial should help you whether you're using our instructions alongside one of our kits where the fabrics are supplied or whether you're using it to recycle your own fabrics. In our previous tutorial we looked at the pattern. In this one we're going to be looking at materials. If you've bought a kit from us as well as polyfiber filling, it's going to contain pre-shrunk calico. That's going to need another wash. Seriously chunky wool from the lovely people at Signet Yarns, handmade glass eyes, cotton pearl for the mouth, extra strong thread and a doll needle for inserting your eyes. If you're really green and you're going to be making your doll from recycled fabrics, let's have a look at some sources. Throw cushions make great raw materials for ragdolls. What we're looking for is a non-stretch, preferably cotton cushion pad and a polyfiber filling. I'm going to use a stitch picker to undo the seam on the cushion to find out if the filling we've got in there is suitable for our ragdoll. Have a look at the label as well, because if you're giving this to a child you want to be sure that it's going to be fire retardant. So find a stitch there and just pick away. Make sure not to catch the fabric, we don't want to damage the fabric. And you won't have to open it very far to be able to see what filling you've got inside. You want something like a polyfiber. You don't want foam, that's going to make your doll lumpy. And you don't want feathers. Apart from the fact that I don't like using animal products. There you go. Polyfiber, fabulous. It's been flattened over the years, but we can fluff that back up and that'll be perfect. We've cut out and we've glued our pattern pieces. Now we're going to draw around them on the fabric. We'll use this arrow on the layout to show us the direction of any pattern that our fabric might have. Unlike the cream fabric that we're using, this pretty little check and heart fabric has a very definite top and bottom. So if you're being adventurous and using something like this for your doll, you want to make sure that your finished doll has all of its pattern going in the right direction. So look at each pattern piece, have a look at where the arrow is and make sure that lines up with the direction of the pattern on your fabric. So no matter how floral or decorative or patterned your fabric is, all of those pieces are going to point in the right direction. This section here tells us about the fact that we're using 5mm seam allowance, back stitch and a matching thread. Here very importantly we've got our green tips, and this section we don't need at the moment. We'll come to this at the next tutorial when we're looking at sewing our pieces together. Now we're ready to start laying out our pattern pieces onto our fabric using the layout in the booklet. We have dark and light pattern pieces showing on the layout. I'll show you on this piece, which is the back of the body, the light front face of the pattern piece and the reverse dark face where we glued it onto our card. So the body front first, it goes up this top left corner. We'll avoid the frayed edge but get it as tight as we can up that corner. There's absolutely no reason to waste fabric. And we'll draw around. I'm using a biro, as long as it's a biro that doesn't bleed, then it's fine on this fabric. You might like to use a pencil or a chalk pen, they're very good. You can get pens that once you wash your fabric will disappear completely, they're handy, but a good old biro will do for me. Draw all the way around it. This is why it was so important that we accurately cut out our pattern. Now the notches, we'll start marking the notches in. These notches will be invaluable when we come to fitting pieces of pattern together. They're duplicated so that if you lay two pieces together you can use the notches to make sure that you're sewing evenly along the seams. Helps you to line them up. There we go, all the way around. Make sure we've gone into the notch. And that's perfect, all of our notches are showing up. That's fantastic. What's next? Right, so next we've got these other pattern pieces, the arm first of all, and the arm is laid close up against the bottom of the body piece there and then flipped to give us a reverse, and then a part of the body back, there we go, and the neck, a section of the neck goes in here. That's great, as close as we can get them. Every piece of fabric that we can save ourselves is a safety net. If you lose a piece of ear, then you have those extra little bits of fabric that you can use. The piece of calico that comes with your kit is 68 centimeters wide and 50 centimeters deep. That's a fat quarter. It's pre-shrunk, but we've washed it, and even so it's going to shrink a tiny bit more. But we know that 68 by 50 centimeters is roughly the area that we need to make this ragdoll. So when we're looking at our cushion cover that we've taken apart, how do we know if there's going to be enough fabric then? And this is where that maths formula that you learnt at school and thought you'd never use again is going to come in very handy. 68 centimeters by 50 centimeters gives us an overall area of 3,400 centimeters squared. That's the amount of fabric you need to make this ragdoll. Let's have a look at the cushion we used earlier. That was 54 centimeters by 54 centimeters. That gives us an overall area of 2,916 centimeters squared. That means one side isn't going to be enough, and I'd like to get 2 dolls out of this cushion, so I'm going to use something different, either for her body or for her legs. You probably won't see it when the doll's made up, and even if you do, it won't matter. It'll look like part of the design. So as long as it's a similar weight, as long as it doesn't stretch, it'll work. I just want to spend a moment on the head because of the eyes. It's quite important to mark the eye positioning. I've already marked the ear positions here and here, and before I laid the pattern down I used scissors to make holes in the points where I'm going to mark the eyes, and then all you've got to do is with your pen, biro, whatever you're using, mark those 2 little dots. It only needs to be little dots. It's just so much easier to position those eyes if you have these points in place already. This is my pattern pieces laid out on my recycled cushion cover, so a completely different layout to the one you're going to have in the booklet. I've even flipped a couple of the pieces over here to make them fit, and I haven't included the body. And here at the bottom I have drawn the dots on the eyes and made a mistake, which I could afford to do because I'd squeezed all of my pattern pieces in nice and tight and had some spare room. The other fabric I've chosen is this blue cotton. It's a nice lightweight blue cotton, a similar weight to my cream fabric, and I've drawn the body back on this side, another body back on this panel here, and on the back, on the bottom left corner, I've drawn the body front. I'm leaving the rest of the fabric as much as I can because I think I might do the same, or possibly even use this fabric for the legs. And now that we've drawn around our pattern pieces, let's use this big pair of fabric scissors to take one of the pattern pieces out. I'm not worrying too much about being close to the line at the moment, very much as we worked with our card pattern pieces. We'll cut around it roughly first, and then with a very sharp pair of small fabric scissors we'll go in and make a more accurate line. The great thing with these little scissors is that you can snip away. And we're going right on that black line. We're not leaving a seam allowance around our pattern. It's all been taken into account. We're just going to cut very neatly on this black line. And I'll carry on doing this. Are you ready for the fade? So whether you're working from a complete kit with new fabrics, or you've been following this tutorial with the pattern and instructions and recycling your fabrics, you'll have reached the point now where all of your pieces are cut out. We've got blue here for the body because I'm doing this as the recycled version. And all of our notches are marked in place. Our eye dots are marked on our face. It's worth grabbing that pattern piece again and laying it on top and just checking these pieces, the dots on the eyes, the notches all around the body. It really will save you time in the long run. And next tutorial we'll be looking at the sewing, and we'll start off with the simplest part, which is the arm. Our next tutorial video will be a step-by-step guide to sewing together and stuffing your doll's body. That concludes our tutorial video. I hope it's been helpful. If it has, please subscribe to the channel, give us some feedback and a like. There are more videos coming soon.